What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things with Shawn and Andrew. This is a podcast all about couples and the things they go through. I'm a solo act today doing this introduction, but we recorded this episode a couple weeks ago before Shawn caught COVID. That's why she's not sitting here next to me doing this introduction. And today we sit down with a couple who we have been friends with for 4 or 5 years now. We actually consider them some of our best friends. And that's Doctors Josh and Chelsea Axe. And they are an outstanding couple, to be honest with you. We talk about a lot of different topics, such as how they met and ultimately were married within 1 year's time, and how and why they decided to pursue such an aggressive timeline. Chelsea talks about her experience doing a home birth with her daughter, Arwen, who's just a couple months younger than our daughter, Drew. And we also talk about what it looks like to be extremely generous with your time. They're both amazingly generous people and selfless with their time. But how do they balance that with also preserving time to love each other and build their own relationship? So I think you're in for a real treat. There's a lot of wisdom shared here. If you want to find out more about Dr. Josh Axe and Dr. Chelsea Axe, we will link both of their information in the show notes down below, including Dr. Axe's new book called Ancient Remedies, which just came out this week. And it's all about natural healing. So you can check that out. We will link that as well. Before we jump into the show, please give the show a rating and subscribe to it on whatever platform you're listening on. And let's go ahead and jump into this one with Josh and Chelsea Axe. Wow, what an honor to be sitting here with doctors Josh and Chelsea Axe. Maybe the longest preface we've ever had to an interview, but that makes sense. We're glad you guys could come and sit down with us.
It's only taken how long? You guys should have been the first ones. Are you
Literally
kidding?
a year ago. And then everybody got pregnant. Everybody started having kids.
That's right.
But we made it here. I want to start the interview with the only question that makes sense asking. What is the biggest marital argument you guys have ever had?
Oh my gosh.
Oh
Here we go again.
Wow.
Here we go again.
Fun fact, we were on vacation with them and Andrew asked this question. Never, ever a good question to ask.
I realized that after I asked, because all I see is Josh and Chelsea look at each other. And then I realized that biggest argument that a couple has never gets really
it's never resolved. So we got to relive that, and then you got to relive yours.
Oh yeah, ours has been updated. We definitely have a new one, and it's
Wow.
we've agreed that it will never be brought back up. Yeah.
No, we're honestly just thankful that you guys are on the show and thankful to have you guys as friends. I think looking back over the past 3 years, you're probably the two people we've known you for 3 years or 4. But
Yeah, I'd say about 3 or 4.
probably the couple we've spent the most amount of time with.
Yeah, because we
Wow,
had
yeah.
like a
Europe.
good year before.
Europe. When y'all went to Europe, we went to Europe. That was like the starting point of our friendship.
And we had a
Yes.
good year before we got pregnant.
Yep.
Yep.
And
was
then the year
2018.
pregnant.
Yeah.
And then, Wow.
I want to jump to a real question. You both are maybe the most clearest cut visions of the purpose as to why you're here on Earth. Like, why are you guys here?
Most intentional.
And what
for
your
sure.
calling is. I would love to hear both of your guys' perspective on how you find that calling per se, and then how you support each other with that calling. Can we start there?
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Good.
That's
You
a casual
want me to
question.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I think for Chelsea and I, and one of the things that made me so attracted to Chelsea early on was she was just a person to me that was, she was so loving, so beautiful. In fact, I'll just share this. Like, one of the things I had prayed for Chelsea for years that God would send me just an awesome wife. And I said, God, would you send me somebody who is physically breathtaking, mentally stimulating, and spiritually just on fire for you? Just somebody who's, that would help me and support me growing, somebody I could really connect deeply with and do things that are really purposeful. And so I think we both believe this early on. We're called to do a lot of things, but I think the 3 big things we really focus on is we're called to love God, love people, and make earth more like heaven. So if there's a piece of trash on the ground, that's, there's not trash in heaven. So it's like, we're picking that up. We believe that if there's poverty, we're called to help with poverty and injustice and all those sort of things. So I think for us, I think that's what we're all called to do, is have a deeper, intimate relationship with God, deeper, intimate relationship with each other, and then also change the world for good. And I think when we're talking about purpose, I think we realize that I believe every single person on the planet, God has given very unique gifts to. Like, there's no one on earth like any individual. And so, I think that our calling is to figure out what our greatest gifts are, and then use those gifts coupled with what's the opportunity that God has laid before you, and then change the world in that positive way. So I think that's in terms of how I think about it. And anything else?
No, I would completely agree. I think a lot of times it's so easy to overcomplicate it or put so much pressure as far as like, oh, what is my calling? And it's this huge thing that we're like, we're searching for on like this daily, monthly, whatever basis as far as like goals or what can I achieve to get this ultimate calling, when really it's a day-to-day thing. So like every single day, how can I love God today? How can I love people better today? And then, again, what in the opportunity, like you said, what's my opportunity? What is my sphere of influence today? And how can I make the greatest impact with the gifts and the opportunities that I have, like in this moment? And it's good to have, like long-term, like greater perspective as far as, year, months, the goals and different things like that. But I think a lot of times we miss them, like at the end of the day, you could check so many things off the list as far as making an impact that day. Mm-hmm. I think we miss the little things. And I think the little things are the little steps that get you to the big things overall. And like, that's how you start.
Yeah. I think this too, like one of the things I think we really aligned with too, like the actual definition of love, because I think this is where because for me to say love God, love people, for some people, and I would say, especially in the media, like love is this sort of feeling you have. For us, like love, it really isn't a feeling. Love is commitment. And love is also this sort of, it's sacrificial love. Like, so for us to have a good marriage, it's very much like, okay, I'm sacrificing the things that I feel like doing right now in order to make Chelsea's day better and to support her in being a better person. Mm-hmm. Like when I think too about loving people, I think it's this combination of, and this is so true, like with kids, it's a combination of nourishing them with kindness and love, but also challenging them to say, you know what, you're called to do greater things. So I think that too, like when we're loving people, it's not always like, you're doing great. A lot, I mean, you guys know us. It's very much like we are also, I know. It's also very much like with our, with Arwen, our daughter, with our friends, with it's like, but also like, we know God has created you for more. So challenging them to, do what they're called to do.
So that's a really interesting nuance there, because I think a lot of people, when they think sacrifice, it's like, oh, let me just be a doormat, essentially, right? Yeah. But like, there is definitely sacrifice in challenging and dealing with the repercussions of that challenge. Yeah. Like it's because it's not easy, right? Like
one of the things Andrew and I talk about a lot about you guys that we respect so much is you guys have that amazing Christian foundation within your marriage, but you have such a strong foundation and belief that the way you confront people is, we've even laughed about it because you do it in such a way that everybody hears it and they're like, oh yeah, okay, sure. And I feel like it's a talent, because with your conviction, it's like a no-brainer. I don't know how to say that.
Well, we talk about how both of you speak such almost sharp truth and honesty, but in such a loving way that it's like received really well. So kudos to you.
I am curious though.
Thanks guys.
I am curious. Something that we have talked about before, and especially prepping for this interview, was we see firsthand your marriage and how your guys' faith plays such a strong role in that. Mm-hmm. But you guys have built a brand that uses you guys. It's not like you guys sit in the back burner and you're away from it. It truly uses who you are. And you guys have built a multi-hundred, I keep calling it $1 billion industry or company. It pretty much is. And I'm curious how that transfers, because within business, there's always sacrifice. And how have you been able to maintain your morals and your beliefs in your marriage so in such a strong way and still build something so successful?
Yeah. So, I think for us, if we're talking, our company, Ancient Nutrition, I think for us, we've been really blessed and had a lot of success, number one, because of God, and because of those principles. And I think too, like for us, like the way we run our business, like I just want our employees to be blessed. And we really mean that. In fact, like one of the things we do as our company now is we have a leadership development program where we read a book together a month. And we have people do personal growth and leadership exercises. And I tell my team, hey, whether you're working at our company or hey, if you decide to leave in a year and you get a a different or a better opportunity, hey, I want you to be, I want you to go over there and, change the world and bless your company and people. So I think for us, like, we are very much focused on our team first. Like, we want to see our team fulfilling so it's not all about us, it's, we want to see them fulfilling their dreams. We want to see them blessed financially. We want to see them, doing what they're called to do, walking within their purpose. And so we're really focused on helping them do that. And I think when you serve employees like that, or your team like that, and also for me, like, I've never been one of those bosses that's sort of focused on, hey, I'm the founder, or I'm higher up in the organizational hierarchy. Like, our focus is really like team. Like, I'm there to serve the team. Like, more like, they're not there to serve me. I'm there to serve them and help them fulfill their dreams and be the best they can be. So I think just like we are in relationships, same thing. I'm nourishing them. I'm challenging them to be the best they can be. And I think that's why we've, had good success. And I think we're also focused on one of the words I think of as like excellence. Like, anything we create, anything we do, we want to be the best in the world at it. And that's one of the things, we've brought up about you guys. And like, one of the things we love about you guys is you guys are so focused on excellence. Like, whether you guys are doing a podcast, obviously your, gymnastics and dancing career, Andrew, your career in football, and just even, the interviews you've done, like, you guys do things with such excellence. So I think that's another thing in business that is probably one of the top 2 or 3 things that create success, is just saying, we want to be the best in the world, not just to say, just because we feel like that's what we're called to do.
We were discussing that when asked, like, Chelsea, what's a good workout routine that I could do to accomplish this goal? Or Josh, I'm not feeling good, and what should I do to get back healthy? Both of you spend such an unbelievable amount of effort and time. Granted, you're both experts in it, so maybe that makes it slightly easier, but still, I've never really seen another couple be so generous with their time like you guys both are. I'm curious what the balance is when you're giving to the company, when you're giving to each other, when you're giving to your child, when you're giving to all these other people. How do you guys navigate being generous in that sense while also saving energy and thought and time for your spouse? Because as soon as we had Drew, I was like, I don't know, like, you're on your own, kind of, Shawn, for a second. Like, you know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely not the best at it. We're still learning and growing in it, for sure. I would say the thing that I've learned, especially in the last, 8 months since having Arwen, is having your priorities right and like set and knowing what they are, and in knowing them, like having them penciled in, as far as like, you can say my priority is this, but does your lifestyle and your actions actually show that's your priority? And I think that's different for a lot of people. It's like, this is my priority. My spouse is my priority. My family is my priority. Okay. But what does your time actually show is your priority, right? Because a lot of times that can look different. So I think being able to map out like your day to day and say, okay, if this is my priority, this is what it needs to look like. And then with whatever time is left, then you're able, at that point, your cup is full, right? I think when you have your priorities correct, you're able to go into the rest of your day or the rest of your time with a fuller cup. So you actually have more to give. It's actually like the synergistic type thing, rather than, giving it to it last when you're already like depleted. I feel like then it pulls. Whereas like if you actually, again, keep your priorities correct and whatever, it's opposite. It's a synergistic type way where all of a sudden you have more to give and pour into other things. Would you?
Yeah, I would agree. I would, and the exact word that popped into my head too was priorities. And so I just think for us, like we're really conscious of it's God, and it's Chelsea and I's relationship, our marriage, and then it's Arwen, and then it's our family, and it's our close friends. And so really focusing on that first. And I can say for Chelsea, I mean, every morning she wakes up and she spends time with God sometime in the morning. A lot of times now it's, Arwen's down for a nap, and she's, got her Bible, she's reading. And so anyways, I think for us is like, yeah, just sort of knowing what your priorities are, and this just checking with yourself and making sure, okay, am I walking in those priorities? Am I giving them the time that they deserve? I think that's,
Yeah. And we're not perfect by any means. There are definitely days and weeks where you know, we don't have that, especially you and I have that time, or, you know, I mean, welcome to being parents.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say more so in this season now, you know, I think, you know, the first 3 months of having a newborn and the whole, obviously that's definitely the most challenging, you know.
I think too, recognizing there are seasons.
Yeah, you pass each other.
High five in the hallway.
Yeah, you pass each other in the hallway like, wait, who are you? Okay, I'll see you tomorrow night. Yeah.
But I think, you know, recognizing there are seasons too, right? Sure. And giving yourself grace for the season that you're in, but then also being able to recognize when the shift in season comes and then like re-strategizing, reprioritizing, because, you know.
Yeah, and I would say the other thing too is Chelsea and I think feel, and I'll speak for myself with this, but you know, I feel, I know what my purpose and calling is. And so I feel like I need to use that. So every morning, like I kind of have this thing where in the morning, it's like win the day. So I spend my time with God, I get my workout in and get those things done. And so one of the things you were kind of asking, Andrew, is like, I have people ask me for health plans all the time. You know, my mom is like, hey, would you make a health plan for your aunt who has this issue? Constantly.
Yeah.
I know I personally asked you for like 50, and every time they're like, whoa, how did he do this?
I know. I personally get texts from 50 people all the time. Like, you know Josh. I'm like, no, I don't actually.
and anytime I can, I'm happy to. But for me, like, so here's my thought with this. You know, when I, growing up, my mom had some really serious health issues. And I had some doctors who worked with me in helping create her a health plan that literally saved her life and changed her life. My mom's in her late 60s now. She's running. She can water ski. She brought my niece and nephew to Disney World for like 10 hours. So she's like doing great, living her dream. But I think about that same thing. If somebody wouldn't have taken the time to invest in helping me create a health plan for her that took them hours, like, I don't know if my mom would be here today. So that being said, like, when I have people who need a health plan, like, it's sort of that golden rule, do unto others as you have them to do unto you. Like, I trying to create the best plan that, you know, so if somebody has hypothyroidism, I will lay out a detailed plan of what to not eat, what to eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, what to have for exact supplements, the essential oils to use, the lifestyle to figure out exactly what they need to do to reverse or cure that condition, or if it's PCOS or, you know, or cancer, autoimmune disease. So anyways, and what I learned too is when my mom had a serious health diagnosis, she was kind of like a deer in the headlights. A lot of times there's so much information out there, people don't know what to do. So I try and make it super practical of here's exactly what you should do for your food, for your workouts, for all that stuff. And so that's sort of the thought behind it.
And that comes back to, you know, again, your daily of love God, love people.
Love people, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's ultimately, like, in that day, this is your sphere of influence. This is opportunity that you've been given. This isn't, you know, where you can serve in this capacity today.
And one of the things I'll say, it's just so amazing about, again, just talking about one with you guys too. It's like, we love this, the parable of the talents in the Bible, when it talks about, you know, God gave one person 1 talent, 1 2, 1 5. And one person just buried it saying, I'm not going to use my talent. And the other 2, you know, God said, hey, I'm going to give you more now. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give you more influence because you were good with what I gave you. And that's one of the things I see with you guys. You guys have such incredible influence. You guys bless so many people with teaching them good principles of marriage and family. And, you know, and when you're faithful with those things, God's like, hey, let me bless you with more. Not to say you don't go through seasons of hardship, right? And we've had things of ups and downs, but I think I think that's I think that's the reason.
Thanks.
The door was opened to Arwen, so I want to talk a little bit about babies.
Yeah.
With Andrew and I, we have a lot of friends who are pregnant, getting ready to have babies. You've talked to my sister-in-law multiple times. But one thing that I always tell people is there's this interesting phase I feel like you go through. It's almost like you just got married. Because when I first married Andrew, it's a completely different person, not necessarily for the worse or for the better than you were dating, just because it's in marriage. Things change. You have to learn who your spouse is and how to live with them and how to do everything. You have a baby, it's the same thing. Your relationship and your marriage completely changes. Whether you want it to or not, it's just there's another human being living with you and it pulls you in all these different directions. I'm curious how having Arwen affected your guys' relationship at first and how you navigated through that process. Or how you're navigating through that process.
That's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever going to end.
No.
Initially, I think it was harder. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
having a newborn, it's all consuming.
Yes.
And then on top of your healing, Like your hormones are crazy.
Yes.
That is a real thing. It's like you hear about it until you go through it. It's a totally different thing.
Until you find yourself standing in the hallway bawling for no reason. And your husband's looking at you like, what?
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Showered last. We're like, no, you guys are always great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, for the first little bit, it's like, I mean, it kind of what you said, it's see you in the hallway type thing. Because again, as the mom, it's kind of, at least for, I did breastfeeding or whatever. So the lot of it, especially as a newborn, is on you as far as you can only feed them. You know, there's only, so yeah.
They want mom.
They want mom.
They're like, Dad, what are you doing here?
Do your nipples do anything? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say one thing too. Like my respect for, women was already sky high, but like knowing and actually experiencing like the amount of time and effort, just the birth process. First off, what a miraculous, awesome experience, spiritual experience, and just being able to experience that together, but also seeing, from through pregnancy through, everything else now, like just the amount of time and effort and complete love and just the amount of patience. That's one of the words that comes to me too. Like thinking about the amount of patience Chelsea has had, just the amount of love she's given. And I know it's the same with you, Shawn. It's it's incredible.
Yeah, I was very blessed, especially with Josh, that he gave me a lot of grace and knowing, and didn't have the same expectations of, no, I wasn't going to be cleaning the house like I was, or I wasn't going to be making dinner, different things like that. He's very patient with me, and knowing that all of a sudden my whole life got flipped upside down as far as what was being required of me, and even stepping up in areas where he necessarily hadn't had to before. Like all of a sudden, he was doing like all the dishes, he was doing all the cleaning, and he was bringing me my meals because I was busy feeding another human being, giving her meals. And so that changed immensely. But yeah, you were great. And I was very blessed that you were, you have that mentality and perspective to give me the grace to be able to do that and allow me to without feeling guilty or, shameful. Because I think that's easy, especially for moms. It's like trying to do it all, like, I'm giving myself all here, but then I feel empty, and
Well, I feel like the hardest part for us is something we agreed to right before we had Drew, was no matter what, we have to always remember that we are each other's number one.
Yeah.
And she's our number one together.
Yep.
And I think
like that.
I think the hardest thing for us to go through in those first months, however many they were, 12 and counting, is that priority.
Yeah.
Like you guys were talking about earlier. Every once in a while you have a hard day where it's like, I love my child so much that you accidentally flip-flop the situation. You put your daughter
so easy to do
ahead of your husband or your spouse. And I think that constant challenge of reminding yourself, my husband comes first, because if he does, that'll be better for our daughter, can sometimes get tricky. And especially in those first months when you're spending so much time with your baby, it's hard to make that priority.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
He's like, no comment, moving on.
Couple things is brought to you by ButcherBox. Babe, are you ready for Sunday?
What's Sunday?
It's the big game. And you know I love football, but actually I think I'm more excited about the food we're going to eat than the game itself.
Tell me why. I can probably guess.
We just got our ButcherBox in.
Yes.
And we're already prepared to grill up all of the absolute best meats. We've got some pork chops, some chicken, even some steaks.
Andrew
ready
loves
to go.
this so much, he's actually put together a club of guys.
That's right.
That come over just to cook up
the
meats.
Nashville Grill Club, baby.
Yes, we really do love them. They have unbeatable value and are super customizable. I love that I can pick out our meats for the month, and we have options like 100% grass-fed and pasture-raised beef,
Free-range organic chicken,
heritage breed pork, wild-caught seafood such as salmon, cod, scallops, haddock.
and ButcherBox bacon is sourced from heritage breed pigs and is uncured, nitrate-free, and sugar-free. Plus, if you become a member right now, they're going to throw in a free game day bundle. You'll get 1 rack of St. Louis ribs, 1 pack of pulled pork, and 1 pack of bacon for free in your first box.
It's such a great deal, but you'll need to order quickly. This special is only good through February 7th.
So head on over to butcherbox.com/couple to order your first box and get a free game day bundle.
That's butcherbox.com/couple to claim this special today.
A couple things is also brought to you by Relief Band.
You know what one of my least favorite parts about being pregnant is?
I'm not even gonna begin to guess.
That's probably smart. But honestly, it's the nausea. I'm past the morning sickness phase, but I still have moments where I just feel like I'm going to throw up. It's almost like this car sickness feeling. And that's why I'm so excited to partner with a Relief Band.
I'm excited about it too, to be honest with you. I mean, nobody likes feeling nauseous, and Relief Band is the #1 FDA cleared anti-nausea wristband that's been clinically proven to quickly relieve and effectively prevent nausea and vomiting associated with motion sickness, anxiety, migraine, hangovers, morning sickness, chemotherapy, and so much more.
So this was actually recommended to me by one of my best friends during Drew's pregnancy, and it saved me. And the best part is this product is actually 100% drug-free, non-drowsy, and provides all natural relief with 0 side effects for as long as it's needed. It seriously has helped me so much.
The way Relief Band works is by stimulating a nerve in the wrist that travels to the part of the brain that controls nausea. Then it blocks the signal your brain is sending to your stomach telling you that you're sick. It's the only over-the-counter wearable device that has been used in hospitals and oncology clinics to treat nausea and vomiting.
Right now, Relief Band has an exclusive offer just for Couple Things listeners. If you go to reliefband.com and use promo code EASTFAM, you'll receive 20% off plus free shipping and a no questions asked 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to reliefband.com and use our promo code EASTFAM for 20% off.
Let's get back to it. I would love, Chelsea, the decision to do a home birth.
Yeah.
Josh was talking about the miraculous, act of birthing, and you decided to take it like a notch up and just do the home birth.
I'm very envious. I'm very envious. I wish I had that much courage.
Oh, round 2.
Yeah.
Whenever y'all decide.
Talk
Round
about
2.
We'll run over here and we're
Yeah.
two doors
Always,
down.
don't you worry.
You'll be my doula. Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
talk about why that was an important decision for you to make, and then how the experience was, if you don't mind.
Oh gosh. It's one of those things where I think anything that a woman decides for her is great. So it's never, I don't think it's ever about this is better or this is not as good. When you're talking home birth versus hospital versus birth center, there's so many options. And I think every option is different for every woman. So let me just preface it all by saying, I'm not saying this is the best way or this is the only way. This is what everyone should do. Although I had an amazing experience and I wouldn't change any of it. And I really hope to replay it again for future kids. I loved having a home birth. Being able to do all my appointments in our living room. Labor itself, I labored at home, birthed the baby Arwen in a tub in our bathroom, and within 10 minutes was laying in our bed at home with her. There was just so much peace and control, and I don't know, it was amazing.
Sorry.
It
was amazing. It was amazing. Sorry, I had so much throat.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, at least, just hospital settings, everything like that. There's just a level of stress that, kind of goes on. You have the lights, you have the different people. It's not your home, just anytime you're in your home. So being able to do all that at the house for me was it was awesome. I loved it. I liked being in control, knowing what to expect. I liked being in control of, all the decisions that were being made. Our midwife team was incredible.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they think home birth, they're like, oh, they're just going to go out back and, squat, and the baby's going to come out and they're going to come back in. And, it's kind of like that foreign, what if something goes wrong? I think that those are a lot of the questions that people come up, but it's like, no, we have a midwife, you have a full team, fully trained and everything. They have all the things that, like they had oxygen, they had different things if they were needed to intervene in any way. We'd already mapped out a route to the hospital. We knew exactly how many minutes it would take to get there. We knew the doctor, he's, different things like that. So it's not like this free for all where, if something were to happen, there's plans in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things to remember about home births too is people have done home births. That was the norm up until 100 years ago. So people have been doing home births since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And I do think it's great. Whatever anybody decides where to have it, hey, we totally respect that.
Yeah.
But I think for us, the choice, as Chelsea said, was less stress. There's no doubt that if you go into a hospital environment, and I've been into many hospitals over the years and treated past patients and that sort of thing, and found that there's just a level of stress and a lot of times fear and just the way that a lot of times our conventional medical system operates. And so for us, the biggest thing I can say is we were just so stress-free. It was such a relaxing environment. And I think if somebody realizes, hey, if you've got a good midwife, like you should, I mean, there's typically, I think, a lot less stress. It's just more relaxing than the average. And so for us, it was great. I will say I had a little stress because here's what Chelsea
I wondered
did.
if you're going to say that.
Chelsea, we're
Is
kind
the
of timing at these
toughest woman in the world.
Exactly.
I'm very competitive. I like to win.
Well, and she doesn't like to inconvenience people.
That's true as well.
And so like we're timing these contractions and I'm like, okay, she's at like 5 minutes apart. We were watching the movie. You've seen the movie Multiplicity?
Yeah.
Anyways, it's hilarious. And so we were watching the movie with Chelsea and her mom, and Chelsea's like, I'm going to go in the bedroom. I'm having a few contractions. And so she was in there, and then anyways, I'm like watching the timer and I'm like, okay, how far are you apart? 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, when it gets to like 4.5, midwife wanted us to call her.
Yeah.
And so Chelsea's like, okay, we're at 5. And then I'm checking. I'm like, hey, I think you're down around 4. We need to call the midwife. And she's like, you're not doing that right. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm doing it right. She's like, no, give me. She's like, give me the phone. I'm like, okay.
The timer.
And then she starts timing it. And in my head, I'm not too bad with time. And I'm like, gosh, this is,
getting close.
these seem pretty close. And finally, this is like 2 hours later. I'm like, Chelsea, can I see this? And I'm like, babe, this is like 2 minutes. And she's like, oh no, I think it's 5. And I'm like, she's not in her right mind right now. And so I call our midwife, Marianne, call her. They get there, and like 30 minutes later, Arwen is born.
Yeah.
You're like blowing up the bathtub while Chelsea's like pushing.
Oh yeah, the other thing is too, I broke off the handle of the tub. So then,
and we were going to use the handle to fill the birth tub.
so I had to like tape it to where it actually water came out. And then anyways, it was a whole
It was a whole
but it was
fiasco.
amazing.
And also, didn't you blow up a tub like manually too? So you're like,
Oh, and then I had to blow it up
passing out,
manually.
like-
Oh my gosh, I was like sweating.
And then my favorite part is your poor mom is upstairs listening to all this with the dogs.
She is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I just remember,
yeah.
I think it was the day after Arwen was born, we came over and Chelsea was just like chilling on the couch.
She's like,
Yeah.
I'm good.
It was
Yeah.
a couple hours. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
she was born at like 1:30 in the morning and y'all were there that next morning.
Yeah, it was
Like
a couple
fun.
hours.
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
We were
Jeez.
both sitting at home like, oh my gosh, can we go see her? Can we go see her?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
Babies, man.
Oh yeah.
Josh, who do you think is the tougher workout partner, Chelsea or Shawn?
The tougher workout
Ooh.
partner.
Yeah.
Man, that is
Define
hard.
tougher.
Yeah.
It really depends what your definition of tougher would be.
I mean, they are both. I'm afraid to say because I'm afraid what the other one will do to me. I'll say this about
And
both
both of
of
us
them.
are like,
So one, in terms of creating a really challenging workout,
Yeah.
Chelsea is one of the, I mean, I don't know
destroy
anybody.
you.
She will
Yeah.
destroy you.
Yeah.
In terms of these two, both in terms of competitiveness and, and I mean, I will say this, I'm going to give Shawn this one on, hey, Shawn, you maybe shouldn't do that. And she's kind of like, I'm going to go and prove you wrong. I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to dominate this now. So that's,
Yeah.
I just remember the first time you and I
Oh
worked
my
out,
gosh.
Chelsea. I've done a lot of hard workouts. I've been through college football, professional football, thrown up one time ever from a workout. Our first time, I was literally in the fetal position feeling nauseous for like a half hour after. It was so brutal. And she was doing more weight than me the
Was
whole
this our
time.
butt
too.
workout?
Also,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
at Boost.
Boost.
Oh
I
my
remember him
gosh.
coming home from that. Because I remember
because we hadn't worked out yet.
We hadn't
together
worked
yet.
out, and
was
I
so
knew- I
nervous
like-
to work out with you. I remember that.
I remember sending him being like, I can't be the first to work out with her. You have to.
oh my God.
So you worked out with her a couple of times. You went to yoga.
That's right. We did.
And he was like telling me about it. I'm like, okay, I think I can do this.
Oh my
that's so. I
gosh.
was so intimidated.
Same.
So
Oh
funny.
gosh.
Oh my gosh.
But the best though was when you and I coached Andrew together during his
During your
CrossFit,
CrossFit
open
games.
workout.
Yeah, I remember. Can I tell you the story?
Oh yeah.
So I'm at the gym doing like this competitive workout, and I said,
Around other people.
I thought, you know what? It'll be great to have Shawn and Chelsea here for motivation. And sure thing, in the middle of the workout, both of them are just ripping me, like yelling
Get
at me
back on the
full
bar.
throttle.
What are you doing?
And I remember
Again.
talking to the people who were at the gym during it after. They're like, I can't believe that those girls were yelling at you like that. Like, they were just scarred. They're like, oh my gosh, that was so intense. But
So great.
Anyway.
Hey, you got a good time.
You did.
so you talk about the home birth and also workouts too on your blog, right?
Everything.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
All things. Mhm.
drchelseax.com.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I always
if you-
love when I read your question and answers on Instagram.
Yes.
I'm always so fascinated. Like, oh, okay. I didn't know
They're
that.
good.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Chelsea's documented your experience well on Instagram and the blog. And so
I have sent more people to the Lady Comp because of you than,
It's a great tool.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
what is
everybody.
that? Can you explain?
Natural birth control.
Natural birth control device kind of tells you when you're fertile, when you're not. So you can either use it to avoid pregnancy or to aid you
Get
in getting
pregnant.
pregnant.
Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, it might be time for number 2 for you guys soon.
Yeah, you guys ready?
Let's master the whole sleep thing on our end. Let me
Yeah.
catch up on that
Yeah.
for a little bit before we even
Yeah.
ventured on that.
That's the most daunting part about like thinking about more kids
Mhm.
is when you finally get your sleep back.
Yeah.
It's like, do I really want to give my sleep up again?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
still waiting for the getting the sleep back part. Like
Mm-hmm.
someday.
Even when you
We're
do,
making
you still
progress.
will never sleep past 6:30.
It's
So
true.
yeah,
One of the things that I've learned from you guys that I feel like has been really good is literally, we were talking about priorities earlier, literally scheduling out, like putting on your like tangible schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is date night, or this is from 4 p.m. on, it's boys night. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so when someone asks you, hey, can we have a meeting at 5 p.m.? No, I'm actually busy.
Yeah.
And Josh, you've mentored me in so many aspects of life. I will give credit to you, Chelsea. I asked Josh the other day, I said, I want someone who can mentor me in praying. And he said, Chelsea, you should talk to Chelsea about that. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good credit. But what rhythms do you guys have that help you have a healthy marriage? Is there monthly rhythms, weekly rhythms, anything that you guys do consistently to just kind of get on the same page and mesh well?
Yeah, so I'll say this, and then I'll also throw in the disclaimer of the last 8 months have definitely been a little different. They've been different.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so throwing in the seasonality thing, but I think ever since we were we got married, we've done a lot of date nights, and not to say we've always been perfect. There's been months where we've missed, but for the most part, we've done pretty consistent date nights, and then also and so we tend to do. I guess it's always dependent. A lot of times it was a Thursday night, sometimes it was other nights, but. That's and then we do a lot of trips together. I mean, that's another thing. I think scheduling these great vacations, and so we would try and do a big trip every year somewhere like the Caribbean, or we've been to Europe twice, which was just magical and amazing and fantastic. And so I think, and then we also have a place in Florida we go. I think a lot of people in the South go down to Seaside / 30A, and so we're down there real consistently, and going out to eat. And the other thing is, and we haven't done this as recently the past year, but we've gone through seasons of marriage where we've worked out a lot together too. And that was a great, I mean, that was, I mean, I think that's, and I think, so in disclaimer, well, one thing there too, when I first started working, this is probably our second year, because I kind of was teaching Chelsea more how to work out the first year.
Yeah.
The second year, she is so into perfect form when you're working out.
Oh yeah.
Which now I'm so grateful for. But at the time, like I'd be in the middle of a set working out hard. And then it went from me coaching her to her coaching me. And she's like, hey, straighten up, like make sure your back is straight. Hey, you're swaying when you do. And I'm like, I remember one time, it was probably hard. I literally dropped the weight and just had to walk out and just be like, just swallow my ego and just be, anyways. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There have been a couple times where you haven't walked away.
Yeah, there was probably a couple times where I was like, babe, leave me alone, sort of leave me
Yeah.
alone here.
We went
but-
through a season where we all worked out together, and
We
the
sure did.
boys had to work out separately.
I remember that. Oh, good times.
They had to work out on the other side of the gym.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good rhythm too. But I think for us, our rhythm is, first off, we both say to each other too, when we get out of rhythm, we're like, gosh, we feel like we need to get back in rhythm, because I think we're just wired that way. But we both definitely start off time in the morning with God and work and in taking care of our bodies. I mean, we really, that's been really consistent since we've been married. And then also time together, but then also time with other great couples. Like we've spent a lot of time with you two. I mean, the past 3 years, we've definitely spent probably twice as much time with you guys than any other couples we're friends with. And we have a few others too. We see sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah. I would say too, though, like knowing how the other one, like what it takes to make them feel connected, like what their love language type thing is. Because my love language versus like what his, like when I feel connected is totally different. So I think knowing what the other person needs and then, you know, self-sacrifice in order to give that and then get that in return, and making time for that specific thing. So like for me, like I need to have like really deep conversation. So so even if like we're going out to dinner and doing all the like trips and everything, if we're not having like a deep conversation where I feel like I can get to like this place where I'm like really vulnerable, I don't feel like we're connected. So like we can do all this like superficial stuff and it's like we're getting all this like FaceTime, but like my internal state of like I feel really like connected and one with you right now isn't there.
Can you make it a little easier on the guy?
No, you know what? I mean, I remember our first couple years of marriage, I really was like, this is, you know, I was like, you know, this is a challenge, you know, I mean, having a deep conversations all the time. And the truth is I do like deep conversations, but Chelsea likes them all the time and a lot. And so it's, you know, but I do think, I mean, it's so important knowing the other person's love language.
But like, to play devil's advocate in that, because of that, like that's how I feel connected. I don't need to go out to dinner.
That's
like
true.
I don't need to go on
So
these
true.
trips. Like we can sit on the couch and have
need a lot of
like
gifts.
eye contact and just have a really deep conversation. Like I'm so full after that.
And that's one of the things that attracted me to Chelsea at first too, is somebody that has, you know, so much depth to her and likes to talk about the deep things in life and has, you know, if you ask her, I mean, if you ask her opinion on something, it's not a one-word answer. It's a very it's a deep and meaningful and impactful. And I've grown I've grown so much just in my spirituality, my personal life, my character from being around Chelsea because she is so deep. She has such great character. It's that kind of iron sharpens iron principle. And so it's, I
feel like one good event that shows how intentional and, you know, thoughtful you guys are is the timeline of when you met to when you got married, which was how long?
6 months engaged, 6 months.
Yep, married.
6 months dating.
6 months dating, 6 months engaged. Yeah, so about 1 year exactly we were married. Yeah.
How?
I love that.
Like, what do you accredit that to, both of you?
I think knowing what we wanted in a spouse. And so for me, again, it wasn't this feeling like, now again, I had strong feelings that came with it, but more so it was like, okay, it was those things I mentioned earlier. I'm number one looking for a woman who is loves God. You know, she wants to continue to grow in her relationship with God. Number two, she's we have a lot of the same values. I know, like, hey, in terms of when it comes to Arwen and her health and those decisions, and it comes to, you know, what we believe about, you know, politics and what we believe about, you know, what we want for each other. I mean, all those things, like that thing, like love God, love people, change the world. Like, so I think that, again, and the other thing is we shared also values of like, we loved health, right? So obviously we, you know, she was you know, in school to become a doctor when I first met her. And so I think sharing the same values is a really big deal. And also knowing that you're going to grow together. And the other thing is that same thing of like, and this is biblical, but it's love is not a feeling. Love is a commitment. Like I'm committed to Chelsea no matter what. I mean, if she makes mistakes, even if I make mistakes, like we're committed.
Yeah, I think we went into dating too. We were dating with the intention of finding someone to marry. It wasn't like we're going to date to have fun and just kind of see what happens. Like the very first date that you and I had, we were both kind of went into it and we're both like, okay, like, let's see if we are actually compatible. And we had like a 2-3 hour conversation where we hit just about every make or break, I feel like, conversation or topic.
Oh yeah.
We, without like saying we're going to drill each other, we kind of did. But just like, let's figure this out right now. Like, we don't want to waste each other's time. Like, we're, you know, I'm looking for a spouse, you're looking for a spouse. Let's see if your spouse material, like if we line up in these values. I think sometimes a lot of people take a lot of time getting to where they actually discover somebody else's values and like things that are important to them.
Yeah.
Which I think it's okay to take time to do that. But at the same time, earlier, you know, if you're really wanting, you know, get married or find somebody, having those conversations earlier on, especially if there's something that's really important to you and make or break, it's important.
And if you don't know, discovering it, you know, and making sure you're aligned.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think if you take two mature adults, that timeline could work for them? Like two mature adults with the intention of...
I think shorter. I know plenty of couples who got married in 6 months or 3 months and have great marriages. So I think you could, Yeah, because
again, if your values align and you agree with the same lifestyle and you talk about all those types of things and you choose each other, you know, love at that point is a choice. It's not like a fleeting feeling. So at that point you say, okay, well, I'm choosing you to commit to tie myself with you.
Well,
and I think it's a combination of like this thing where it's like, okay, we both said this, and then you do want to give time to see, is that person walking that out?
Yeah.
So that gave us enough time that year, or even with Chelsea, I could tell after, you know, a month, but it's like, well, everything she's saying, she lives this, she actually believes it.
That's
What
true.
do you say?
well, and I feel like when you see a lot of people and they're dating, it usually takes them way too long to just uncover and start revealing to the other person who they are.
Yep.
And for some reason, people are too scared to share what their morals are because they're like, oh, this person is going to leave.
Yeah.
Which is a waste of time.
Yeah.
If you want to date, fine. But if you want to date to marry, I love your guys' whole stance on it. And I think if more people uncovered what they actually are looking for, you would not waste so much time. And you would probably fall in love with people a lot faster.
Yeah.
Because you're just being you and not being some random Joe until you uncover who you actually are.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because like I'm an old guy now, or I've been married
Old
for like,
guy.
So
for like
old.
4 years. I've been married for like 4 years, but I do reflect on like our 2 years of dating and think that was way too long. Like
It was a waste of time.
It
was great.
The further we get into our relationship,
Yeah.
again, it probably comes with experience. But now I'm like, oh well, 3 months is enough time. Or 1 month is enough time. But I think part of that is maturing, maybe. Anyway. Okay, so you're both health experts. Shawn, did you want to go ahead?
Okay, I was really curious about this, and we talked about it beforehand. But you guys are doctors. You practice Eastern medicine. Is that how you would?
Yeah.
And I feel like we've lived in a year of pandemic, of medical fear.
Yeah.
And when you watch the news, I feel like one side of medicine has been just shoved down your throat. And I've been curious, since it goes against your practice, how it's affected you guys emotionally, physically, within your business, within your marriage, and how you've dealt with the past year, since most people have just lived in a year of fear.
Yeah. You know, I think, and just to sort of divine it too, I do think more of our thoughts are more towards sort of an Eastern medicine. I'll say when I used to run my practice full time, it was called a functional medicine practice. And so it is, there are some aspects of Western thought that I think are valuable, but, you know, we really believe in more natural medicine, as you're talking about. And so that really means, you know, when it comes to, you know, a virus or a bacteria or something that we get exposed to on you know, on a yearly basis, my philosophy has always been the very same as Hippocrates, as Ayurvedic medicine, as Chinese medicine, as biblical medicine in the past. And that is very much on your body heals itself. And so what we always want to do is we want to strengthen the body, because our bodies are incredible. Yeah. And if you get your body strong enough, your body's able to fight off viruses and other things. And so when you look at what's going on today, when people are more susceptible to different viruses or conditions, it's due to immunodeficiency, which essentially means your immune system is down, is weak. And when people are over 70 years old, on average, their immune system can start to get weaker. And so what should we be doing is strengthen their immune system. I came out with a podcast with Gabe and Rebecca Lyons. You guys have had them on. So I did a podcast with both of them. This was about a year ago. And he interviewed me and Rebecca did, and they said, hey, what would you do right now to fight this virus that's out there today? And I said, here's what I would do. I would eat this very specific diet that's good for the immune system, chicken broth, ginger herbal tea. I laid out all the foods, lots of vegetables, these certain berries that are rich in vitamin C, and all the foods that are good for immunity that have been known for thousands of years in ancient Chinese medicine. And I said, this is the diet I would follow. And the supplements I would take are zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, and then I would do herbals like elderberry, echinacea, astragalus, and ginger. And so anyways, and I got all this criticism for it of people saying, how could you say that? Because this virus might be different and all this. And I'm like, listen, these are principles that don't change. That's the other thing. Our medical system today, conventional, it's changing. One week they'll say this is good. Another week they'll change it. These principles I'm talking about, they are set in stone. And it's just true. There are things you can do. It's like if you eat vegetables versus cotton candy, one is better than the other. Like we know it, but not until there's a. So all that being said, now recently they're coming out saying, well, vitamin D actually is, might be good for this, and zinc might be good for this. So anyways, I think our philosophy is very much on, we make decisions based on principles, not what the latest study says, because they're actually ever changing and they're very biased. If you look at pharmaceutical companies today, they're making money off of these things. So they want them to show and say a certain thing. So, and the other thing is we really also just really believe, I would say too, and I love to hear Chelsea's thoughts on this too, but is let's look at the fruit. This is a biblical principle. Jesus said, by their fruit, you will recognize them. So I think, hey, healthy people that have really good health, that's who I tend to listen to versus if somebody hasn't had good health, they haven't gotten good results with people, why would I listen to them? And the people I know that are the healthiest live by these principles. And so that's why we live by those principles and teach them ourselves.
Yeah, I think one of the hard things this year, again, is what you said, is that a lot of what they've pushed, or majority of it's so fear-based.
Yeah.
And that's something we don't endorse, and we don't ever want to promote on anybody, is when you're making a decision, you don't ever want it to be because you're afraid. Like you need to be empowered with, the education, with what's truth. You need to know your options, all these things, but it should never be made in a position of being manipulated by fear, right? It's not saying you're never afraid, but it's not giving fear this place of influence where it's actually deciding and making those decisions for you. Because fear is not truth, right? It's not truth. Love is, all those different things. So I think that's been one of the most frustrating things is because everyone is in this state of panic and fear, and it's like this positive feedback cycle that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And how do you get off the hamster wheel? So I think being able to take a step back and say, okay, what is truth? Well, this is how the body was created. The body was created, has been getting over viruses and bacteria, and it actually needs those for health since you were born, since you came out of the womb. That's how how does your immune system actually work? What does it look like? Okay, well, how do these things come into effect? And being able to actually logically lay out all the factors. And I think that's been frustrating, is that hasn't been done. People haven't looked at it that way. It's been just whatever the media is, pushing, or whatever I heard on social media. Somebody tweeted this, so oh my gosh, let's all freak out and go buy toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's been frustrating, I think, for us, is I feel like people haven't been able to think.
Yeah, and I think one of the things Chelsea and I always try and do is, and she said something that I thought was brilliant, it's you want to step back and also look at things from a big picture perspective. Like, think about this, like if we're talking about the Bible, there's no doubt anybody could say our medical system today, the conventional system, is full of striking fear in people. Well, the Bible says God is love, and the opposite of fear is actually love. And so you have this system that is all based on fear and manipulation, which isn't healthy. Here's the other thing. When you look at the way that this virus may have affected society today, people aren't considering, it's like you should look at how many lives are being lost. That's so important, but also how are people being affected on the other side, the amount of the suicide rates. I just read an article that came out last week based on a study showing kids' depression has gone up tremendously because wearing masks, they're not interacting, how that's actually going to weaken their immune systems. So anyways, I think that's one of the bigger issues today too, is people have not had a big picture perspective about hey, how we make decisions about closing businesses, what that means for people. So anyways, I don't want to be political, but just to say too, I think that's the weakness of our medical system today. It's very much based off of fear. It's based off of biased studies, and it's not big picture thinking about, hey, what's really the best for the health of everybody long term.
That is actually something we've talked about a lot, the psychological effects of everything that's happened this past year. We were on a plane not too long ago, and we saw an elderly man have a panic attack. And I was talking to Andrew. I was like, you have to like sympathize with him. That our world is so scary. Not because it's supposed to be, but I would have a panic attack too. And it just made us really sad that the psychological effects of everything going on is huge.
Yeah.
So you mentioned principles that never change, that have been used for thousands of years. I think that ties in nicely to your most recent book, Ancient Remedies. You've written a book on keto diet. You've written essential oils, ancient medicine. I'd love for you to just talk about this book, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, I this is the book I'm the most proud of. In fact, we had Dr. Oz write an endorsement, who he rarely writes them. And then we had Shawn, he's here, write an endorsement.
Fun fact. That's how we met. Was long story. When I was training for the 2012 Olympics, I had a nutritionist that I swore by. The one book she told me to read was Eat Dirt. And I remember thinking about, I knew your name, and fast forward, we got introduced. And I was like, wait, I know him.
Yeah. On a side note, before we get into this too, and then I went up and introduced myself
at a coffee shop.
At a coffee shop, because we have the same, our brother and sister PR people too. And and Andrew gave me the most evil eye. He was literally like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to enjoy a nice coffee with my wife, and this guy's coming up and
saying hi.
Are you Shawn Johnson?
Well, and then I heard your name, and I was like, wait, no, babe, that's Josh. It's Dr. X.
And I was on the other side of the coffee shop. I'm like, I can't believe he's doing this right now. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm going to sit over here.
And I'm like, just last week, they were like, you should do a collab. So I'm like, hey, we just, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm excited for people to read this book. We've already got incredible feedback from people saying it was one of the most, one of the easiest to follow, but also most advanced at the same time. So the book really goes through how to use food as medicine. Yeah. And so whether somebody's looking to balance their hormones naturally, lose weight, boost their energy, boost their immune system, any of those things that goes through it. So, and I think a few things, we tried to make it really it's both advanced nutrition. So it goes into TCM and biblical medicine and Ayurveda, all of those forms of ancient medicine and these principles that have stood the test of time. But then also we go through and we have a personalized diet in there. So one of the things that I've taught for years, that's a form of ancient medicine, is that there's not one perfect diet for everybody. Like a lot of times people, I think we've probably all experienced. Have you ever had a friend who's done a diet and they've seen great results and you've tried the same thing and you're like, this is not working for me? It's because everybody is very, very unique in their body type and the way they were created. And so this has really the 5 diet types based off ancient medicine. So you can take a quiz in the book and find out which diet is best for you. And then I have meal plans in there. We have recipes, and the recipes are all really healthy, but also really practical. So we have like chocolate chip cookies, only rather than white and wheat flour, we're using, almond flour and oat flour. We've got pancakes. We've got all kinds of stuff. So
their recipes are the best.
We could speak from personal experience.
Yes. Yes.
Fire. They're so good.
Dinner date nights.
And then I have a reference guide in the back. So if anybody's struggling with anything, again, whether it's hypothyroidism, adrenal fatigue, infertility, I go through exactly what to do for foods to eat, foods not to eat, the supplements to take, essential was the whole thing. So that's all kind of laid out in there. And anyways, it's the book I'm most proud of. And I think if people pick it up, and people can go on, Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble or local bookstore and get it. But I think they're going to be really just, impressed with the book, and excited for people to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I love about both of you is you're both so rigid with your diets, I would say, but you leave a lot of room for dessert too. Like both of you love dessert. but you just know how to
Yes.
do it and navigate it correctly.
You got
right?
us
Like,
hooked on dessert. We were never
Yeah.
dessert people.
yeah,
gosh.
dude.
Now we eat dessert with every meal.
It probably is. So I'll say this. I would say, actually, when we first got married, I was a little more rigid. I would say we know what ingredient, we know what works well with our
Yes.
bodies too. So like we still eat chicken parmesan, which we actually have in the book. We have lasagna. But we just use really clean and healthy ingredients that we pick up at Whole Foods or the health food store, that sort of thing too. And I'll mention too, like, so like even in the book, like Shawn, like when we first met, like you do really well on a certain type of diet
Yes.
that's actually different than actually all of us are wired a little differently. And so like Shawn's like, you know, orange foods like pumpkin, sweet potato, butternut squash is like a perfect food for her, you know, and anyways. And so it's important that people are eating based on their unique makeup, or else sometimes they don't, you know, they don't see the best results if they're not eating that way. So
I would like to get your guys' insights. A lot of people have health goals that may be ever changing. Maybe they attain them, maybe they don't. How have you guys supported each other with your different diets that you have? And how do you, what advice do you have for someone who, you know, picks up Ancient Remedies with a certain goal and they need this help from their spouse, you know?
So one, I think if anything, we've realized that eating healthy is important, but like being super strict is not good for you. You know, being stressing about food all the time, and so that's one of the things I think we've helped each other with is like, hey, you know what? Like when we went to Italy, like we had gelato, we had pizza, we had the pasta, like we do those things. So anyways, we don't eat. I actually believe a lot of people make themselves sick emotionally because they over worry or have anxiety about what they eat versus knowing, hey, this is the unique way I'm made. These foods are better than me. I'm just going to try and get more of these foods in and get a few of these out. Just being a little bit more flexible like that. I think people are healthier for it. So if anything, I think we really help keep each other in check in that, hey, it's okay to have a vacation. We don't call it cheat meal. Okay, that's what it is. But hey, it's okay for you, hey, to have a vacation meal and splurge a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, Chelsea definitely moved me more in that direction. I'll say that too.
Yeah.
So she's
He
like,
was
stop being so
very
stiff,
rigid
you know?
when we first got married.
Yeah.
That was
I'm
that
a
was
lot
hard.
more, yeah.
Yeah. Now you're more
Relax. Yeah. I'm more fun. Exactly. So, and I'll say this too, you know, one of the things too, just as a takeaway for some food stuff for people, like I think we're under the mentality too, like nobody needs to be perfect. Like if people just thought about this, if you just change breakfast, that's 1/3 of your diet.
Yeah.
So if like people don't know what to do, where to start, just start doing like a superfood smoothie in the morning, 3 simple ingredients, 1 cup of like almond milk or coconut milk, something like that, 1 scoop of a collagen protein, and 1 cup of like blueberries or some sort of fruit. If you just did that smoothie for breakfast, bam, that goes a long way having something healthy there. So anyways, I think sometimes less is more with people. I think, hey, just try and get more vegetables, fruits, wild organic meat. You do that and just change breakfast, boom, you're gonna go a long way.
Or we can fry up 50 quail eggs.
Or wow.
I'll never forget
duck
that.
eggs.
Duck eggs.
Duck eggs.
We were
had
in
duck eggs at one
Seaside
time.
and you and I are both pregnant and we made
Oh my
the
gosh.
most food I've ever seen
It was like
in my
5
entire
cookie
life.
sheets full of
Eggs.
duck eggs.
As well as waffles
We had waffles.
and omelets
And
And
omelets.
and bacon.
And there was like,
We had the beef bacon. Remember we had the beef
Yes,
bacon?
yes, we
that
did.
stuff is amazing. I remember there's like 20 eggs left and everybody looked at me like, well, Andrew, you gotta finish it off. I was like, I got no chance
Yeah.
here.
You did eat a lot of that. I bet you had 10. You maybe had a dozen. You have a lot of eggs.
As well as
man.
5 egg omelets. Yeah.
That's
I don't know
right.
if I've been had a duck egg since. So just
I don't think I could. Yeah.
Still.
This I can still smell it. Yeah, fried coconut oil. Closing question. What is the best piece of advice you have been given or would give about relationships?
Ooh. Oh no, you put us on the spot.
I got 2 thoughts.
Go for it. I don't have any yet.
So 2 things. So one is this principle, and I think it relates to couples. You become who you surround yourself with. I think being around other couples that are, you know, love God, love people, and want to change the world, like that's what we look for in couples. And so that's why we spend time with you guys. You know, it's why we have just a couple other friends we spend time with. We're really selective about who we spend our time with because we know, like, we rub off on each other, right? And I think we also sharpen each other. And so I can tell you guys, like when we go on vacation with you or we're doing a date night or we're coming over in our sweats and like hanging out, like I always leave feeling more inspired and excited because you guys are people of action. You guys are people that love people so well. Family is such a priority for you that it makes us say, hey, we want to continue to do these things in our family. When we hear you guys are on a trip or you guys have a family tradition, like that inspires us. Like we start doing some of those things. So I think being around, like being really conscious of being around other couples who are, again, love God, love people, want to change the world. Like I think that's so important. And the other thing is, I don't know if I'm going to take your thing. So do you want to say it and then I'll say my last thing?
Go ahead.
So one of the things Chelsea has said is, I think it's important to focus on just, I'll let you go because I know what you're going to say.
Do you? I don't think it was what you're going to say.
Okay. You go ahead though.
Okay. One of the big things that we got when we were in premarital counseling, what I loved, him and I are both very competitive. And so we compete at, we're on the same team, but at the same time, we both like to win. So one of the things that was told to us was make every day a competition of who can outserve the other. And I think going into every day with like that mentality, or even at the end of the day, if you've done one thing, or, if you ever have a choice where I can hang up his shirts for him. Like, do I want to? I could do a million other things, but it's going to take me 3 extra minutes. I can do that to serve him today. Even if he has no idea, or he's not aware, little things like that. I think that goes a long way in marriage. And I think those add up and build over time. And it also just creates, a different, like, I don't want to say atmosphere, but just like, sense of mentality of, perspective of the relationship, even at the end of the day of, what that looks like. Is that what you were going to say? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
When I think back on the past 3 years with you guys, it's fun to think that, we were with you when I got a call to sign with the Redskins.
my
That
gosh.
was so awesome. In New York.
Greatest
Yeah.
breakfast
In New York.
ever.
It was a fantastic breakfast. We've vacationed together. We bought this house because of you. We've started businesses. We've ended businesses.
Had babies.
We got
together.
pregnant, had babies, the whole thing. So, and that's only in 3 years. So I'm excited for what the future holds. We're thankful for you guys. Thanks for
Yeah, we love you guys.
giving us the
guys.
time. And we love you too.